Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Morning.
Morning, all.
Hope you're well.
Morning.
We'll just wait 30 more seconds. There's just one more person in the waiting room that's joining. Probably has stepped away from their computer for a moment. If everybody is okay, we are going to record today. We've had a few feedbacks that due to recent drama, there's a lack of a better word there, of FCDO this past week, some people aren't able to make it, just using that headspace for themselves. So hoping that we can record this if everybody's okay with that. Brilliant. Multitasking, the aim of the game. So perfect. Well, welcome back today. Thank you again for joining us for this third session. Really excited to see where we can lift off from here. Had two really successful. Hopefully today is really successful as well, and then we can pick up from this and see where we'd like to go with it. So I think by this point, you know who we are. I'm Claire. I don't know where she is on your screen, but she's there on mine. This is Heather, and then don't know where she is on yours, but she's there on mine. That's Deborah. And these ladies especially have been working hard behind the scenes to get this off the ground, and hopefully continue as we go. I am going to do quick housekeeping, but you know the rules. We've been on Zoom for 1.5 years. Please mute yourself, etc., etc. Use, if you really are interested, video filters are a lot of fun, and we are all into those. So do feel free to use some video filters. And I'm going to hand it over to Heather.
Hi everyone, it's nice to see you all again. We're going to have some time in a breakout room shortly, and I thought we would just quickly go over what we've done over the last two sessions, two absolutely fantastic sessions. I think I learned in both those sessions, I learned so much. I learned more than like years before just in those two sessions. So just to quickly refresh our memories, in that first session, which was basically, first of all, challenges and issues that we faced, followed by some case studies. We broke out into little breakout rooms, discussed challenges and issues, and then fed back, followed by 3 case studies. The first one was Harriet Bell from Pursue in Kenya, and she gave us a case study about St. Agnes Academy, which I found so fascinating. She described some of the issues that they were facing, like which many of us face, like no formal training, digital access issues, lack of management skills, and so on. And then we had Andrew Ball of Known, hi Harriet, Known, Valued and Loved. And he is working across the globe really, into Lebanon, Iraq, Pakistan, into conflicted areas, and collaborating with local partners for children to have access to relevant, high-quality education. So that was also an absolutely amazing session. I've got pages of notes from that. Then we had Eleanor Siva, Children's Voices in Action, and she gave us some insights into their training and schools enrichment program in Mexico. Again, absolutely packed with ideas, and she showed us some wonderful resources and what they're doing with teachers in those programs. Then in the second session, we had some more input, wonderful input from Mark Smith of Enable Ed. Hi, Mark, he's over there. And he gave us 11 absolutely so practical, insightful do's and don'ts of TPD. Very practical stuff. And that was followed by Deborah Kimathi of Dignitas, excuse me, and she described the operation that they run in Kenya and their working model, and again gave us loads of practical tips and input. So that sort of very brief, it doesn't do it justice because there was so much input. So what we're going to do today is try and tie that all together and have a discussion about what we do next. So I think we will hand over to Deborah.
Hi, everybody. Good morning, I think, for everybody, at some point in the morning for everyone here. It's great to see you all and to reconnect. So as you know, this week, our intention had been to explore a challenge carousel and to have some members share their challenges and for us all to dig in and problem solve together. But we did not get any volunteers for the challenge carousel, which either means that none of you are sufficiently challenged or that you're all just too busy to process and think that through, which is completely understandable. Everybody has a huge amount on their plates, whether that's just trying to figure out post-COVID what the world looks like, or whether that's trying to figure out FCDO, fallout and everything else. So we completely understand, and perhaps it's something we can do again in the future. So as Heather has rightly said, we're now going to use today's session just to try and understand collectively where we are at now. Where have we reached? What have we kind of learned and achieved over the last couple of weeks? And where would we potentially like to take this next? Is this a community of practitioners who would like to continue to interact with each other in some way? Are there other ways we can continue to support each other? And how would we potentially make that happen? So it's really a session for looking forward and figuring out together what comes next. I should say that there's absolutely no pressure on anyone to sign up for anything further. It has been a complete pleasure to interact with each of you through this series. But even if there is some desire to form some kind of community of practice moving forward, nobody will be forced to join. We shall make it as flexible and open a space for anybody who's interested. So we're going to go into breakout rooms, and we're going to look at 3 questions in our breakout rooms. So first of all, reflecting back over the last couple of weeks, or couple of sessions, I should say, are there particular things that you're going to try, particular things that you would like to kind of experiment with in your projects where you're working? Or in your organizations. And if you are very switched on, you will remember that was the homework question from session 2. So just really intrigued to hear your feedback on that. And perhaps what are you still struggling with as you think about that as well? And then these 3 questions you can see on your screen. So what would you like more of? Would you like more sessions like this? Would you like to try and get more kind of sharing, more case studies, more collaborative learning? What would work for you and what would offer you the most support? And how could we do this? Would you like this to be a community of practice that has kind of a Facebook group of its own where we reflect on just these issues? Would it be a WhatsApp group? Would it be an email thread? What would work for people to actually keep some momentum going if that's of interest? And that ties to the question of when and how you'd like to connect. Would you like to connect once a month, once a quarter? What would work for you and what would feel valuable for you? I think the key is to think about what would add value. Everybody has busy, demanding schedules, and everybody's probably juggling more than one set of responsibilities. So what would work? What would actually add value? What would actually support the work that you're doing? And how can we help make that happen? So Heather, I believe, has us set up ready to go into breakout rooms. Any clarifying questions before we head in that direction? Is everybody good? Excellent. Okay, great. So we'll be in breakout rooms for about 15 minutes and we'll come back and feedback. And we are likely to wrap up today's session a little bit earlier than usual. So hopefully that gives you all a bonus slot in your schedule to drink an extra cup of coffee or something after this. But for now, let's go to breakout rooms and we'll see you all back here in about 15 minutes. Please appoint somebody to take notes and report back once we regroup. Happy sharing.
Right. Claire, room 3 has only got 3 people in it.
I was on mute. I will go.
Okay.
Hello.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hi.
How is everyone this morning?
Not too bad, thank you.
Good.
Yeah, good, thanks.
I'm glad. Sun is currently shining, so we'll take it while we can.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So why are we inside?
I know. The moment we have, it's supposed to rain for the next 5 days, I think.
See, I didn't check the weather forecast, and that just depresses me, Claire.
I'm sorry.
But
Don't do
that
it.
5 days include the weekend.
Well, so the thing is I check it and then I refuse to believe it because last week it said it was going to rain all weekend and it didn't. So it's not going to rain.
Well, from Monday you can go back into indoor cafes, which makes life much more bearable if it rains.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, just to get a different taste of scenery. Be great. And different coffee.
Absolutely.
Cool. Well, I really don't want to take over this. So please, what has been helpful? What would you like more of? And tell us.
I think just hearing what other people have been doing has been really helpful. On two accounts, really, finding out that everybody has the same issues and challenges, but also understanding that everybody's situation is unique. Every small charity is helping in a very unique way in their specific area, and I think that's almost a double challenge for me. How can you, because we need to collaborate, but doing that in the best way possible and finding maybe the best people to work with and share with.
Absolutely. Remind me where you're based, Linda.
Team Kenya in Diwa, Western Kenya.
Perfect.
I found Mark's presentation really useful. Not to
Yes.
Because he's in the room.
Complimentary to him while we're same.
Thank you, Rory.
What did you find? Agreed. Absolutely. It was fantastic. What did you find the most kind of takeaway from that?
I mean, I think having it broken down into 10 things that you can. I was almost just doing a checklist of our projects as I went through it.
Okay, nice.
I think we have one project that Mark's already helping us with, working with one school, and the thing about not overloading the teachers and concentrating on like 2 or 3 things that they can work on. We definitely have. We're kind of like adjusting to that now because we did try and do everything at once, and I think it did kind of overload them.
Yeah.
That's really important. I was a teacher. That was my career in education, and I always felt, especially as a new teacher, we had a training day and then that was it. And then later on we had another training day on a different topic. And so that ongoing follow-up and time is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. I find that one for me the most difficult because I just feel like I have all this information, let me give it to you, and money and time, and we don't want to take 3 days of your working, or you're not going to come to us on the weekend or whatever it is. I have all this information, so I 100% agree. We don't want to overload teachers or anybody that we work with, but at the same time you're like, but I have everything here.
Yeah.
Take it.
What I think is really interesting, though, is if you've got 2 methods, your normal method, because I'm hugely an advocate of piloting things and seeing if they work. So, you almost do something, you do your normal method with some of your schools, and then you just go with 1 or 2 schools and try the other method. So you're not wasting all your money and just saying it. And then you actually look and see which one impacts more. And that's really valuable. the projects I do in Western Ethiopia, it's all based on little pilots, which but then you evaluate them and say really, really well, because that's what funders love. You know, we've managed to get DFID grants, comic relief, well, ex-DFID grants, comic relief grants, but it's all about little projects that are really well evaluated and say, right, we're doing this methodology and here's your evidence. And they
Sorry, Mark, we'll pick that up in a minute.
Heather, sorry, I got cut off at the very end there.
I was going to say to keep up with the smaller breakout rooms where we connect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone. I think we have everybody back, Heather. Is that right?
I think so. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, breakout rooms, never quite enough time just to finish that last point, is there? But great to see everybody back. Maybe we can just hear a little bit of feedback from each group. Heather, which group are you in? Is there somebody appointed to
Yes,
share?
and Julian's going to feedback for us.
Yeah, as best as I can remember. What would we like more of? Well, first of all, we all thoroughly valued the shared practice and the practical tips that were being shared by people. The fact that it was practical rather than theory really helped bring it down to earth. Most of in our group were not educators, but are related to education in different fashions. So having those things from educators was really helpful. And also sharing the process of application. So some of the challenges, you know, perhaps I should have gone up the hierarchy first, you know, those sorts of lessons that people have learned, very useful. Then there was a discussion about training resources, and it would be helpful to learn more about availability of resources and understanding of any funding avenues that might help people get access to those that are not free. Especially finding donors for salaries and things like that, which I think we would all enjoy. Then there was a small discussion about technology and the use of devices and how best to use them, and how to engage students when perhaps you don't have those technologies. So there was a degree of lack of stimulus in classrooms where teachers are talking at rather than talking with students. And how do you go about changing that? And then in terms of meeting, we thought that 4 to 6 weeks would be a good time. That Facebook group would be a really useful way of keeping things moving forward as opposed to a WhatsApp group. Yeah, continuing with the small breakouts because it's really great to meet people. I think that was it.
Excellent. Thank you, Julian. That's really helpful. Anybody want to add anything? Okay, fantastic. So there was a group, I think Claire was in. I don't know if somebody from that group is appointed to share back your wisdom with us.
We didn't appoint. Does anybody want to feedback?
I don't mind this time because I think somebody else did last time, and then unless the others want to. So we, like the other group, we sort of appreciated the sharing of the challenges and common problems, but at the same time recognizing that often the situations that we're addressing those challenges in are quite unique. So it's good to hear that the differences and similarities. Rory particularly said he liked Mark's 10 things and had found them quite useful to start using as a checklist for projects. And we talked about the idea that small scale pilots are quite good to see how things work, and that's a good way of not overburdening teachers with lots of things to do at the same time, even though we might think we've got lots of interesting things there. One thing we were quite keen as a group to follow up was the voice of the child, to learn that session, to learn more about the tools and how to use it. And we talked a little bit about the best people to do that in country project. You know, it's not necessarily us, it's somebody that children and young people would naturally talk to and open up to as well. What else did we talk talk about? We talked about the things that for the next steps, we like the idea of possibly having small groups to follow up on specific challenges and areas that people were particularly interested in. Not everybody uses Facebook and WhatsApp for work-related activities. So Claire suggested or asked what we thought about the use of Slack, because you can see different channels and has the advantage that you might not lose a thread if it got really busy with lots of people on. So that's just another option moving forward for sharing. And I think that was everything. Oh, just in terms of pilots, Mark sort of reminded us that basic reading and literacy and maths, possibly if you've got lots to focus on, key areas to start with.
What was that, Linda? Use of Slacks or something?
Slack, yeah, it's an online. I don't know much about it, but it's an online community, and you can have different sort of groups running at the same time.
I see.
The conversations are stored.
We love Slack for managing volunteers. It's fantastic.
Okay.
Again, Slack is something that you can use instead of having it listed by people. You have it listed by topic, so you can go straight to that topic. So it's really useful.
How do you spell that? How do you spell
Yeah, could you pop that in the chat box? I'd love to find out more about that one.
Yeah, and one last thing that was specific to me, I felt that for us, particularly Team Kenya in Kenya, we should possibly start to look at some curriculum-specific projects or support as well.
Yeah. Thank you, Linda, for sharing back, and everybody for that input. Really interesting. I think one thing actually that struck me while you were sharing, Linda, and the idea of piloting is I feel like more and more funders are looking for collaborations. And if we had 5 or 6 different members who were jointly piloting some of the same stuff, that could become something really powerful that could attract funding, could attract other interested parties. So that might be something worth exploring. Yeah, thanks, Linda. Okay, we have the final group, which is where I was. Sharon, I think, is sharing back.
Alrighty, I hope I took notes. If I forget anything, please jump in. So we talked about country clusters and whether there's value in, because East Africa does tend to dominate the Facebook group. And, you know, after the first call, Rory and Lorna and myself, we actually met to talk about something specific. We talked about phonics. And then that led to me looking into some training and then maybe trying to set up some training for people within Ginger. So, you know, the power of sort of doing those other connections is really great. We talked about having a Facebook group, but potentially not reinventing the wheel. So there is the APTO group, which already exists, which focuses on education, I think. So we talked about whether we could talk to them and see how it might work for us to share resources within that group rather than overwhelming the Small International Development Charities Network group, because obviously there are other organisations on there that don't focus on education. And within that, potentially having some sort of resource list, because there's lots of websites that we all use. We have our go-tos, but others might not know about them. You know, that example of Slack. So some people hear about things before others do. Slack's definitely gaining momentum, and I see it more and more. You know, there's things like Jamboard that only got introduced to me about 2 weeks ago. And so there's lots of resources out there, but we all hear about them at different times. And so having some kind of resource list that stops us all, you know, struggling to find a way of doing things when it already exists. We talked about how Janet, for example, is working in secondary, and most others, well, quite a lot of others are working in primary or early years, but there are probably themes, particularly for teacher training, that cut across both of those age groups, and trying to find ways of connecting and sharing resources that do that. Yeah, and just, I think lots of sharing, and you know, there's so much out there that we certain people hear about and others don't, and I think having a central place to be able to share that. I mentioned a set of webinars that went on by the TTS group in the UK, which was very early years specific, but had, you know, lots of value to us, and you know, they're probably online still, so people can go and watch them. And so yeah, just I think the value of sharing and connecting to people through a Facebook group without reinventing the wheel, and whether then be able to meet up within their countries, despite the fact some of us are still 8 hours away from each other within the same country. If I missed anything, please feel free to jump in.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Sharon. So yeah, I think if I was to sum up what we're hearing from the three groups, is that there's definitely interest in continuing somehow to share and learn together. I think a few kind of nuances around how we do that, how we best make that happen, how we do it in a way that doesn't become a strain on anybody's schedule, but is something that adds value for the work that we're all doing. And I think there's some great ideas about how we do that. And I think it's sharing opportunities, sharing learning, and sharing resources, if I was to kind of sum it up. And a Facebook group or a Slack channel, either of those would do that well. Slack is one of those apps, like every other app, that you either love or hate, but it does have its useful uses, or applications, I should say. So that's something we can look at. I think it would be great to explore whether we can potentially jump on the Apto platform without wanting to hijack it, obviously, but just seeing if there's some way we can potentially add value and help build some momentum there by bringing these conversations together. And I love the idea of having country clusters. And again, that could be something that we do on Slack, that Slack could have a Kenya group, a Uganda group, Afghanistan group. We had somebody from Afghanistan back in session 1. But yeah, we could have country groups and fulfill many of these functions there. So I think that there are lots of things to consider as we move forward. Claire, feel free to interrupt me if what I'm saying is off track, but I think what we can do as a team is consider these notes and consider maybe 4 or 5 things we can practically do. And then I imagine we'd be looking back to you as a group and looking for people who would perhaps help support some of this sharing and gathering and communicating, whether that's managing a Slack channel, whether that's helping set up something on Facebook, but to have different members of this group kind of engaged in that way. Because I think if you wait for Claire, Heather and I to do it all, it won't be the most practical. But I think we can put our heads together and at least pick out some first steps and kind of set the direction if that would be helpful. So I think with that, I can hand back over to Claire and she can correct me if I'm wrong and jump in with anything else she wants to add.
No, I think absolutely. The beauty, I think, that I've really recognized in the past year is that as a collective of SIDCN, APTO, just community members of Working in International, is that we have maybe found a renewed realization that we can just take charge and make something happen. You know, things that have happened in country, we don't necessarily have control over, but we can create rooms such as this and run 3 sessions that have been very well attended, and we can then move on from that with an idea. Linda was mentioning in our group, we spoke about, it'd be really interesting to hear more from Eleanor about how she uses the child's voice. How does that actually work? You know, who are they telling the truth? Because if it's me that they're talking to, they're probably not. Who is it that they're speaking to, and how are they doing that? But that could be a session in itself of, I'm going to run this. If anybody wants to know what's happening, I'm here. So I do think there's definitely the power of this is ours. And I am more than happy to come and help set up a room or put some promotion out for you. But I really would encourage that this is ours as a collective, so that there's no one person ownership, but I have an idea, I'm going to go ahead and do it. Yeah. So I guess it's practical steps moving forward of what would we like? Should we keep this as the APTO kind of conversation going forward? Would you like me to set up a Slack? Completely understandable. I was against Slack for years. It was another technology that I really just couldn't be bothered with. So I don't want to say, everybody, let's move over to Slack and have you then have another application on your computer, your phone, your iPad, or whatever device you have. But how can we best keep in touch with each other, continue this momentum of looking at 4 to 6 weeks? Do we meet up again? Should we put a date in the diary now of, in 6 weeks time, let's have a think about this. Let's allow things to die down as they are in the world right now, and then revisit in 6 weeks time of a group such as this to say, okay, now what steps are we going to take? Tell me.
Maybe following Mark's advice on something else, a little Slack pilot would be good. So I'd be happy, for example, as you know, Deborah suggested, you might be looking for people to I don't know how to do it, I'd have to learn, but that's fine, to set up a little Kenya stream in Slack, for example. And then if other people wanted to join in, we could try it over the next few weeks.
Okay. I like it. Slack pilot.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to have a think and then meet again in maybe 6 weeks' time. And in that time, explore Slack. I'm definitely going to go and have a look at it. I'd also be happy to set up a cluster in Zimbabwe or even South Africa. I know there's not many. I haven't seen people from South Africa, but they're very close. So, and yeah, whatever. I think that's a wonderful idea, Claire, just to take some time, have a think, and come back in about 6 weeks' time. How does everyone else feel about the 6 weeks? Because we discussed very briefly that a week is too close. 2 weeks was wonderful for a session, for these 3 sessions. But if it's regular and ongoing, it's too close. And even a month, sometimes it comes around so quickly. So we sort of ended up with 6 weeks as being an optimum time. So I don't know how everyone else feels about a 6-week meeting, get together.
So we'd be looking at like the end of June, I think.
Yeah, I'm happy with the 6 weeks. I have one small concern with the clusters, in terms of that if you know, I'd like to be involved. I'd like to have access to all of the clusters, because it would be a shame if lots of clever stuff was being shared in the Uganda cluster, because there are like 20 people in Uganda, and the 3 of us in Tanzania are going to go, yeah, it's very quiet. What's going on? And we're not involved. We're not sharing any of that. So that would be a concern of mine if clusters became the main form of communicating rather than as a collective.
Yeah, the channels on Slack can be open, so anybody can join any channel. But the other way to do it might be, let's have an East African cluster. I mean, obviously that doesn't include everybody, but is it a bit more aligned to what people would prefer? So there are different ways to explore it for sure.
Absolutely. I think there's options. Like if we do go down the Slack route of that, those clusters are quite specific of something that's very specific to that country that can be spoken about in that particular country cluster. Whereas we could have the other channels of kind of more broad of curriculum setup that people go, oh, well, this is what I did in Tanzania, this is what I did in Uganda, this is what I did, that it is a little more open. And if it's something quite specific to country, then that would go into it. Or can we all meet up if you're in the same country? Could have a UK one. When can we meet up?
Yay.
Like a week's time?
I think Hortense is organising a dinner, isn't she? I mean,
yeah, I'm there. Just looking at the chat, Janet, happy to set up a channel.
On the timing, because I don't know about you guys, but I feel like time just runs 1 week, a month, 6 weeks. It all just comes around really, really fast in my diary. But I do feel like 6 weeks is a good chunk of time. But I think it would be really great if perhaps 2 weeks before the meeting, almost like, what do you want to talk about in the meeting, rather than just a recurring 6 weeks meeting without like a specific focus to it, I think would be really great.
I agree with that. That'd be really good. Yeah.
Good plan.
Yeah, I was actually wondering if the first one in 6 weeks' time could be like the children's voice one. And maybe if it's like an hour and a half session, like what we've been having, an hour dedicated to that, then half an hour for just kind of other catch up, breakout rooms, figuring out what else people are struggling with, new resources, just some kind of general sharing. And then I saw, Lorna, your note about the challenge carousel. Maybe we can do that again in one of the future sessions, when people have a bit more time to prepare. So we could have for each session that kind of like main event for an hour, and then half an hour of just catching up and sharing and other housekeeping stuff, possibly.
Cool. Well, I did create a very quick feedback form, and I will send this through an email. Hopefully we can all access this. It worked earlier. But that's just a way that we can, we can continue these. Obviously, we've spoken about a lot of it, but it's just having it in writing. We all know our M&E processes. There you go. There's one. But also a future thought of, as SIDCN grows, as these groups continue to grow, are there funding opportunities that we can say, look, we already have a group that talks about the teacher training and they need some extra funding to bring in this incredible speaker, or for us all to fly to one area in the world. Wishful thinking. Yeah, so just continuing on that. So if everybody has a chance, but I will put that into an email once I get the recording from this as well. Cool. So 6 weeks time looks like, my calendar's not being nice with being able to count dates here.
23rd.
Thank you. The 23rd is exactly 6 weeks from now. What is anybody's diaries filled already? Deborah, yours is? Oh dear.
But it's okay. I mean, if it works for everybody, go ahead and I shall figure out how to catch up.
It's my wife's due date, so I might be busy.
Oh, okay.
You definitely want to be available for that.
Yeah, I've probably prioritize that.
Sorry, sweetheart, just hold on. I need to be on this call. Gonna go somewhere.
Wave to everybody on Zoom.
Well, that's very exciting.
Claire, sorry, thank you so much for organising all of these things, and of course to everybody. I've been out of the loop for a little while, and I'm just, where would I find the slides and things from the last two sessions? Because I kind of lost count of what was going on.
They were sent out an email, but I'll send you another one after this with.
Oh, that'd be really kind. Thank you.
Again, yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, could you send me the one from last week as well? I missed that somehow.
Julian.
Thank you.
No problem. So did everybody else get them? Do you want me to just add it to this? Yes, yes.
I think I got them, but I'm not entirely sure where they are either. Just
and Lorna. Okay. Done. Absolutely. So I guess going back to those dates, do we want to just do 6 weeks to the day? Does that, other than babies being born and schedules already filled, does that work all around? I mean,
sounds good.
If we had a baby born on the next day we're meeting. Just
there was a suggestion of having a meeting like a week or 10 days beforehand, just to just for half an hour to go through anything that we needed to raise for the next meeting.
Or even just an email chain.
Yeah, I was going to say, otherwise a briefing, like an email with, you know, sort of ideas or an agenda or what to think about, what to bring.
To help focus minds.
Yeah.
That sounds good. I can put that in the diary to throw something out 2 weeks ahead of time. would anybody want to take chair of that meeting? I can take it this time.
Then we could rotate, I guess. That's the fairest way, isn't it?
Deal. Deal. Yeah, I will send an email 2 weeks beforehand, and then we will see everybody same time, same place, sort of thing.
I know I promised that when I'm in the UK.
Oh, Lorna, we love your internet.
I know she said she's got internet issues.
Yeah, sorry. I need to do something about it. It's happening way too often.
Lorna, you need to swap to MTN, love.
I think I do.
I mean, the other side of the river seems to be doing quite well with Shaz.
At the moment.
23rd of June, 9:30 BST in the diary. I'll send that out.
And then just quickly before we go, I want to say so big a thank you to Claire, because she's done so much back work and she's organized everything, sent out emails, done little posters, and all that takes so much time. She's done the PowerPoints. There's loads and loads and loads of back work that she's done. So Claire, thank you very much. It's been fantastic, really. Well done.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't have been able to do it without your ideas. So teamwork makes the dream work, but I appreciate it. Thank you. Excellent. Well, thank you all. Really, really appreciate all of your time. This obviously is not over because we'll see each other in 6 weeks' time. I will send out all of the relevant emails that I've told you that I will send. It's all written down, so I won't forget. And yeah, let's just keep in touch. Let's overtake the App to Education Facebook group in the nicest way possible, just to keep those conversations going and build up that community as well. My email address for SIDCN is communications@sidcn.org. Most of you have that because I've sent you emails. But if everybody is also okay, I will put everybody's email addresses into the to section and not the BCC every single time. And so yeah, we can all keep in touch that way.
Perfect. Thanks, Claire. Thanks, everybody.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, everybody.
Take care, everyone.
Thanks so much. Take care.